Let's share the prayer before the sermon. God of deliverance and freedom, you taught the people of Israel to acknowledge that all things come from your bountiful hand. Deepen our faith so that we may resist temptation and, in the midst of trial, proclaim that Jesus Christ is Lord, now and forever. Amen. Testimony from a soul under siege. David, the second king of the Hebrew people, is considered to be the author of Psalm 27. And Psalm 27 resembles a diary or a journal entry. I don't know if you keep a diary. Some people do. I've never been able to be faithful in journaling, but some people keep diaries. I imagine that if David kept a diary, Psalm 27 would be in it, would be part of it. The psalm speaks of being assaulted by people David describes as evildoers, adversaries, and foes. At verse 3, David wrote of an army encamped against him. It seems that David felt threatened, attacked, surrounded, under siege. Reading David's description of his situation brings to mind the words of Howard Thurman in Jesus and the Disinherited about people who live, as Thurman said, with their backs against the wall. Dr. Thurman's words bear repeating as we ponder this text. He wrote, I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times that I have heard a sermon on the meaning of religion, of Christianity, to the person who stands with his or her back against the wall. The masses of people live with their backs constantly against the wall. They are the poor, the disinherited, the dispossessed. What does our religion say to them? The issue is not what it counsels them to do for others whose need may be greater, but what religion offers to meet their needs. The search for an answer to this question is perhaps the most important religious quest of modern life. Close quote. People who live with their backs against the wall are people who live under siege. And Psalm 27 applies to people who are under siege. People who are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs and have no health care and no pension because employers won't pay them enough or pay them to work long enough to have health care and pension and a living wage. And they're trying to make ends meet while everything is going up. People with their backs against the wall. It applies to struggling families. It applies to the masses of people. Thurman says the masses of people live every day with their backs against the wall. To use David's words, they live assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. What does the word say to them? Or do we just say, y'all have to make it the best you can? We'll just go on about our business and not think about you. No. This passage speaks to that situation, and Psalm 27 begins with this answer. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold. The King James says, is the strength of my life. But you have to understand that word in its context. The Lord is the foot is the place that is the stronghold of my life. They can't break through this. Of whom shall I be afraid? The masses of people know about needing a safe place, because every day masses of people feel under siege from hostile forces. Every day, not just today, every day, our brothers and sisters who are Muslim know the feeling of being assaulted by adversaries and foes and enemies, evildoers. Since 9/11, it has become popular. It has become popular to demonize all followers of Islam. Now, nobody demonized all Christians after Timothy McVeigh blew up the Albert B. Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Nobody did it. But it has become popular now. We didn't have a Patriot Act after that, understand. Man drove down from the north central part of the country, drove a U-Haul van down, parked it in front of a building where he knew children and women and workers were, and let it blow up and blew them away. Hundreds of people killed, and nobody demonized. But since 9/11, we have demonized. You recall the TV shows? 24 was a Fox TV show that was focused on finding terrorists. And all the terrorists were people from Muslim. They weren't from Indiana, Arkansas. They weren't from Louisiana. They weren't from Mississippi. They weren't KKK members. They were Muslims. Muslims know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. Immigrants know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. All the folks who have broken into people's houses and committed crimes, more often than not, are not immigrants. But why is it we are making a national emergency about immigrants? Every day, immigrants know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. People in poverty know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. We now have to put poor people who can't afford health care off health care because we don't trust them to not have enough industry to need health care, as if they just been sitting around waiting to get sick so they can have some free health care and really don't care about having evildoers, adversaries, and foes. Every day, women and girls know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. That's what the Me Too movement is about. But before the Me Too movement, there were still women and girls assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. Every day, people who are LGBTQ know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. That's why we have a Matthew Shepard bill law. But before there was a Matthew Shepard, it was popular to pick on folks who were LGBTQ. And even now, people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender are targeted for assault. And then every day, black and brown and red people, women and men, boys and girls know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes just because they show up, just because they go to school, just because they go to work, just because they're driving while who they are, going to school while who they are, shopping while who they are, taking a nap while who they are. Everyday people desperate for health care and people who are desperate to provide health care that's affordable know the feeling of being assaulted by evildoers, adversaries, and foes. And the list goes on. The list goes on. And Psalm 27 is about their testimony. It is about the testimony of people who live every day with their backs against the wall and wonder how they are going to make it. If you want to know how this is a social justice text, notice that the Dangers are all plural. My enemies, my adversaries, my foes. These are existential threats. David is dealing with an existential threat. And that's why we have a social justice ministry, because the gospel of Jesus Christ is about the response of the existential threat that faces every people. And don't get mixed up on the meaning of that word salvation. Please. It has nothing to do with whether or not you believe in Jesus. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up. Talk about it. Jesus wasn't in David's mind in this text. You got to understand, Jesus is several hundred years later. David's not worrying for Jesus. David's talking about, who's going to save my bacon? Who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to deliver me? This is about deliverance. This is about liberation. Don't miss this up. I know that we are stuck on evangelism, but don't write Jesus into this text. This text is about deliverance. That doesn't mean you write Jesus out of it either. You don't write Jesus in it, but you don't write Jesus out of it, because we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Take your time and think about it. The issue we face now is that in every time and place, the masses of people are oppressed by enemies, adversaries, and foes who resemble an army encamped and poised to overwhelm them by force. You understand, an army is an organized threat. It's not just a bunch of folks who just decided to get up. No, armies are organized. And David talks about army encamped and poised to overcome him. Now as then, people are besieged by organized threats to their existence. And the Bible is a collection of literature about threatening people, and the way that threatened people hold on to belief in the power of God to deliver them while they're living with their backs against the wall. And I want us to pay attention to how David puts it. Besieged people, people who are surrounded, people who are backed up against the wall, have run out of places to hide. They cannot overpower their enemies. That's why they're backed up. And they cannot outrun their enemies. That's why they're against the wall. You don't run into a wall unless you have run out of running room and running space. They have outrun you and outnumbered you and caught you, and you are backed up against the wall. Psalm 27 speaks of that situation that people backed up against the wall face. In verse 5, for he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. The idea expressed by those words is protection. Social justice. People who are oppressed need protection. They need protection. Our Muslim brothers and sisters need protection. Our immigrant brothers and sisters need protection. Our brothers and sisters who are poor need protection. Our sisters who are women and girls need protection. Our LGBTQ people need protection. People who are oppressed need protection. You understand, when you cannot run, you need somewhere to hide where you won't be spotted. That's the idea of being hiding. You played hide and go seek. You recall that? The idea of hiding is you try to find a place where you will not be found. You try to find a place that is camouflaged. But what happens when it is you don't have camouflage? What happens when you run out of cover? What happens when you can't blend in? That's when you have to find a place that's out of reach. You understand? You run to get away. But when you can't get away, you hide where you can't be seen. But when you can't hide, you got to get high enough where you can't be caught. The idea is progressive. The threat is, and I can't overpower it. The threat is, so I have to run from it. The threat is too fast for me to run from it, so I have to hide from it. The threat is too fast for me to hide from it, so I have to get somewhere where it can't catch me. You see the progression? He will hide me. He will hide me. And then he will set me up on a rock. In other words, he'll put me where they can't catch me, even if they know where I am. Even if they know that's where he is, if they know that's where she is, they can't grab me. To borrow from M.C. Hammer, can't touch this. And then we deal with that issue that somehow in the power of God, David understood that his enemies had besieged him, but even then, God would hide them from their sight. And if he couldn't be hidden from their sight, God would keep him beyond their grasp. So from the safety of his outer sight and outer reach place in God, David was determined to do something. Notice what he did. He worshiped. He worshiped. Now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. In other words, David says, I'm determined to praise God even when my enemies and my foes and my adversaries have chased me down. And I've gone to the back against the wall. I'm determined to utter shouts of joy even in God's hiding place. Determined to praise God and thank God and not do it timidly either. Lord, I thank you for what? No. I'm going to make a joyful noise to the Lord. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be comforted. This is strong praise. This is loud praise. This is exuberant praise. This is bodacious praise. This is bold praise. People who live with their backs against the wall cannot control what hateful people do. Let me say it again. People who live with their backs against the wall cannot control what hateful people do. You cannot control what bigots and white supremacists and misogynists and other hateful people do. You cannot control what people who hate immigrants do. You cannot control what people who hate poor people do. You cannot control how hateful people think and whether they will act on their hostile beliefs. But we do have one power. We do have one power. We have the power to decide whether we'll be afraid of them. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. We can decide whether to face our situations with courage or with trembling hands and hearts. Unable to run away and unable to get away forced to live with his back against the wall, David chose, David decided, David made up in his sanctified mind that he was not going to be afraid. No, I can't outrun them and I can't outfight them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be scared of them. David got ahead of Maya Angelou, who said, "Still I rise." David got ahead of Langston Hughes, who wrote about mother to son, says, "Life for me ain't been no crystal stair, but you better pick your head up, boy. Life for me ain't been no crystal stair." In every age and place, all people who live with their backs against walls must decide. I say it again, must decide. That means choose. That make a decision. Must figure out that they are not going to be afraid, that they are going to look up, they're going to sing out, they're going to resist the sinister forces of doubt and fear. We must decide to not be afraid. Fear is a choice. Let me say it again. Fear is a choice. We choose to be brave. We choose to believe. We choose to be bold. We choose to have courage, and we choose to be scared. And if we choose to be scared, we lose. We must decide that no matter what enemies, adversaries, and foes do, we will not be afraid. We will not stop trusting. We will not stop trusting God. We will not throw ourselves away. And that's what happens when we give ourselves over to fear. We throw ourselves away. I don't know how I'm going to make it, so I'm going to give up. I don't know how. It's just too much. It just keeps coming. And yes, it does keep coming. David doesn't say the enemies aren't going to keep coming. David says they are camped. They don't have to keep coming because they got me backed up against the wall. They have camped outside my house. And David says our greatest concern is not whether or not our enemies, our adversaries are going to do to us. Our greatest concern is whether or not God's going to abandon us. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. Come, my heart says, seek his face. Your face, Lord, do I seek. Do not hide your face from me. You see that prayer? Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You who have been my help, do not cast me off. Do not forsake me, O God of my salvation. If my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Do not give me up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they are breathing violence. Our greatest concern is that God might turn us away. As the old saints used to sing, where can I go but to the Lord? Where can I go? Needing a friend to save me. Where can I go when the Lord turns us away? And the great collateral concern, the great related concern to that is that religion, folks, will turn us out. I just not said something because you understand, for a whole lot of people, the great power of oppressive religion is the power to excommunicate people, to make people believe that they are beyond God's love. You recall one of the worst things that could happen to you was said you died outside the church. As if you died outside God's love. And the psalmist expresses the concern of oppressed people everywhere. Will God forsake us? Has God forsaken us? And if I may say so, that has been the great, great anguish of the people who survived the Holocaust, who said, we wondered where was God at Auschwitz. We wondered where was God in the concentration camps, but not just in the Holocaust. That has been the concern of people whose children were sold. Where is God when I'm worried about my babies? Where is God when my sons and daughters and my husband and my wife are sold away? Where is God when my loved ones are raped? Where is God when my land is stolen? Where is God? If we ever get the impression that God has forsaken us, then we're conquered. David answered that question at verse 4. One thing I've asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. That was not a prayer from a timid soul. Because David also prayed at verse 11, teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. In other words, David trusted God's fellowship even when besieged by his enemies. I'm wondering if God's going to let me go, but I'm trusting your fellowship. This is a soul on tiptoe. Sometimes you have to walk on tiptoe, you understand. When you're on thin ice, you don't stomp. That's right, Carl. You're from Minnesota. You don't stomp on thin ice. You walk on tiptoe. But you keep walking. You keep walking because you understand the only way to get to solid ground is to walk across the ice. You can't stomp on the ice and stay on the ice and wait for the ice to get... Don't miss that. Don't miss that. With enemies camped around him, David declared, I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. You missed it. You missed it. That was your shout right there. Despite false accusations, David declared, I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. You missed it. He didn't say, I believe I'll see the goodness of the Lord in the sweet by and by. He didn't say, I believe I'll see the goodness of the Lord when the roll is called up yonder. He didn't say, I believe I'll see the goodness of the Lord just over in the glory land. No, he said, I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord. Where? In the land. Where? In Little Rock. On my street. Where I'm backed up against the wall. If you'd asked David how God's goodness is going to show up, David said, I don't know. If you'd asked David, when is God's goodness going to show up? He said, I don't know. But that doesn't keep me from saying, I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord. And all of a sudden, Psalm 23 comes back to me. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, not after my life. Don't write this over into rapture land. This is a justice text. This is a text about deliverance from a threat. When your life has been against the wall, this is a text about deliverance from predatory prices and predatory loans. This is a text about deliverance from mass incarceration. Don't know how, don't know when, doesn't keep me from believing that God will do it. I don't have to have the fine print on God to know that God's got a blueprint. Beloved, believe that God's goodness will show up in the land of living, where it matters most. Believe that God's goodness will show up when others can witness it, when you can witness it, when you can experience it, when your enemies can't do anything about it. Believe that God's goodness will show up despite anything and everything that your enemies and your adversaries and your foes try to do and hope to do and even do. Believe that God's goodness will show up. Even if the people closest to you don't believe it and desert you, believe that God's goodness will show up. Because God is your light. God is your salvation. God is your stronghold. And in the strength of that confidence, you got some work to do. You got some work to do. 4-letter word. 4-letter word. Wait. 4-letter word. Understand now, wait is not passive. Wait involves two things. Watch and expect to see it coming. You don't wait for something you don't expect to see coming. You don't wait for a bus you don't plan to show up. You don't wait for a plane you don't plan to show up. You don't wait for something you don't expect to see. Waiting involves watching and expecting. Waiting is active faith. And so the psalmist says, wait for the Lord. Don't wait weakly. Wait and be strong. Don't give me that mealy mouth waiting. I'm just waiting for the Lord. No, I'm waiting for the Lord. This is where I'm making my stand. Enemies, do what you want to. I'm waiting for the Lord to show up. And let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. This is a journal entry. This is from David to David. Now, I understand that people don't think it's cool to talk to yourself. Okay? But the truth of the matter is, most people talk to themselves. Amen? Most people talk to themselves. The problem is not that you talk to yourself. The problem is, when you talk to yourself, do you say duh back? Duh. When you talk to yourself, do you say duh? Or do you say, wait for the Lord, let your heart take courage, and then back to yourself say, wait on the Lord. You understand? David says, wait to the Lord to himself, and on the other side of himself, he says, wait on the Lord. You missed it. This is call and response. Call and response. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and be courage. And others, wait on the Lord. Wait for the Lord. Enemies against you. Be strong and take courage. Wait on the Lord. Wait for the Lord. Folks lying about you. Wait on the Lord. Wait for the Lord. And take strong and be courage. Wait on the Lord. I don't think you get it. Wait and watch. Wait in the stronghold of God's protection. Wait because God's goodness is on the way. Wait because you have a steady mind and you have chosen not to fear. Wait because even when the funds run low, God's on the way and goodness will come to you. Wait when good friends forsake you and false friends betray you. Wait when it looks like the enemy has the upper hand. Wait and declare to yourself, I believe I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of living. And that's why I'm not scared. Amen.
Lord.